Welcome to the very first episode of a podcast you probably didn't know you needed. This particular podcast is called Slay. As always, I'm Dave DeBaugh, coming to you from the Silicon Valley. Now, on this podcast, we're going to be covering the NFL, the National Basketball Association, a wide variety of other sports as well, and of course, a mix of pop culture will actually be part of this particular show. Now, our feature story today is actually going to be about the sports guy. Now, you might be wondering, who the hell is the sports guy? And if you grew up in the 80s in Southern California, you know that the sports guy for a portion of that time was actually Jimmy Kimmel. I'll get into my thoughts and opinions on this whole Jimmy Kimmel controversy. That is our feature story on the very first episode of Slay. But we begin tonight with a picture of an alien. Seriously, if you were to, get some paint or spray paint, if you will, Adam Silver green, you might confuse him as an alien. Look, at the end of the day, Adam Silver's decision to currently not move forward with NBA expansion just feels so wrong for such a wide variety of reasons. Now, this next picture is a picture of the quietest superstar in the NBA. Kawhi, did you say something? Kawhi, nobody can hear you, Kawhi. Kawhi, did you learn to speak by listening to Shaquille O'Neal mumble? Look, at the end of the day, the controversy between Kawhi and, of course, the loudest owner in the NBA and one Steve Ballmer has certainly distracted Adam Silver from what he should be doing, which is, at this point, convincing the greedy owners around the National Basketball Association that NBA expansion is a good idea and should happen. Look, the fact that they've been dragging this out year after year after year is just simply wrong on so many fronts. Okay, go ahead and drop in your comments and thoughts when you have a chance. I should point out it is Thursday night of the year 2025. It's September 18th, if you're wondering what day it is. That being said, there is a lot going on in the world of sports. But on our very first episode of Slay, I thought I would show you a couple pictures of Jimmy Kimmel back when he was young. Now, I grew up all over the place, but eventually ended up in Southern California. While I was in SoCal, my favorite radio station used to be a heavy metal station, which went away and later turned into a Spanish music station because that's where the money was. But after that happened, I tuned in a lot to K-Rock, which quickly turned into my favorite radio station in North America. Now, during that time, there was a sports guy on the show, and his name actually was Jimmy Kimmel. And I have to say, regardless of your personal political views, I can confidently tell you that after hearing Jimmy Kimmel as the sports guy on K-Rock, there is no bigger overachiever in the world of the media than Jimmy Kimmel. If you go back and listen to or are able to find any of some of Jimmy Kimmel's thoughts as the sports guy on K-Rock. Now, I get it. People in the media all have to start somewhere, and that just happened to be where Jimmy Kimmel really got his big break. Now, over the years, we've seen Jimmy Kimmel actually expand his career pretty significantly, going from the Man Show to actually hosting the late night ABC show. And while you might not agree with Jimmy Kimmel's political views, it is safe to say that you can call Jimmy Kimmel's career on ABC a successful one. Look, it's like marriages. If they stay and they work throughout a person's life, it's fantastic. But if for some reason it ultimately falls apart, it's going to crash and burn. That doesn't mean those people that started out in that marriage did not have a good run at it. And certainly over the years, a lot has changed in the media landscape. And late night talk shows, as we know from a ratings perspective, have certainly faltered. But so has every other thing on, if you will, over-the-air television. CBS, NBC, the CW, and of course ABC have all suffered from the new reality, which is the word streaming. And the word streaming means so many different things to so many different people. This particular podcast, at some point, hopefully, will be streamed live on YouTube. But for now, you're just going to have to sit here and watch a recorded version of it. Or maybe it will go live on Spotify. That being said, Jimmy Kimmel's audience has certainly changed over the years. And part of that change has certainly resulted from the kind of humor that Jimmy Kimmel ultimately put out. The people that watch Fox News don't watch CNN. The people that watch CNN don't watch Fox News and probably seldomly actually show up to see what's happening on the far left side of the world over at MSNBC. So regardless of where you stand from a political standpoint, Jimmy Kimmel over the years has proven that he was a staying power on late night television. It was your choice whether or not you decided to actually tune in to watch him. Now, what happened with the FCC chairman who actually wrote part of that famous 2025 initiative, specifically the media chapters of that, was not at all surprising in any way. For Bob Iger, the president and CEO of Disney, to cave to his affiliates, those being the people over at Sinclair and Nexstar, was, it quite frankly, not surprising. It was, if you will, the perfect trifecta of things happening at the same time. First, CBS ditched their show. Then there was this particular statement that Kimmel made the other night. Now, that statement that he made, I have to say, was probably one of the more harmless things Kimmel's actually said over his career. You probably find at least 1,000 other far more offensive things he said to people on the right than that particular statement. I mean, he's a comedian. Of course, he's supposed to be able to actually go after people on both sides of the fence. Now, I bring up the both sides of the fence part simply to point out that the real downfall of Jimmy Kimmel at this point is probably a result of spending too much time actually just going after one side. You know, the beauty of John Oliver and the beauty of Bill Maher is that they find ways to actually go after everybody. Sure, they're slanted in one particular direction, and that's something that I think over the years Kimmel actually forgot to do. Now, while I think this was an absolutely horrific decision and says a lot about the direction of media in the, at least over the air media in the national spotlight, to be bullied the way Bob Iger was by the president, because let's just call it what it was, to be bullied by the FCC the way he was, to be bullied by his two affiliate networks the way he was, he had to make a financial decision. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are saying, well, it loses money and it shouldn't be on the air anymore. I like to point out to those people that the Miami Marlins were a horribly run organization for years, and yet they sold because of the valuation of the team for over $1 billion. And if you go take a look at the Florida or the Miami Marlins books, it's going to take them years before they actually turn any kind of profit to justify the expense that was actually spent on the team. It's about valuation sometimes more in the world of business than it is actually about profit and loss. Take a look at Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys organization. $140 million to buy the team, a team that's probably, if he really wanted to sell it today, he could probably get north of $15 billion for it. Valuations play a big part in how businesses actually work. And so the people that you've seen coming out basically just saying he needed to be fired because he wasn't making any money are actually not reading the tea leaves correctly. The people that actually came out and said he deserved to be fired for what he said certainly don't believe in free speech. I certainly am a big proponent of it. At the end of the day, this was really about free speech being taken away because an executive, a major executive who has been bullied in the past by this particular administration, got bullied again. And a lot of times, if you are a person who's been bullied once, you're likely to be bullied again. And we all know that the best way to stop bullying is to actually stand up to a bully in the first place. Look, at the end of the day, Jimmy Kimmel's contract was coming up, and my guess is that ABC probably was going to walk away from Kimmel at this point. I want to point out once again that I think Kimmel had a fantastic run, if you will. Coming from where he came from, he certainly has overachieved, in my opinion, in his career. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on this particular topic. But if you believe in free speech, and you truly believe in free speech, you have to understand that what happened yesterday was bullying by the FCC. It was an attempt by a couple affiliate networks who have allegiances in a certain political direction to actually use their power to actually get somebody ripped off the air. You know, one of the best parts about political humor is that comedians feel comfortable actually delivering that political humor. And if we end up in a country where political humor is no longer allowed, then, my friends, I think we all know the path that we're heading down, and it usually ends and starts with actual breadlines. All right, hey, listen, this show's really not always going to be this political. It's really going to be more sports related, as I mentioned, with certainly some pop culture mixed in. But I had to set the story straight as it relates to the sports guy from, of course, K-Rock back in the 80s and 90s. All right, thanks so much for tuning in to the very first episode of Slay. I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all good luck and a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.